Okay, so what I want to do now is test the button board that we've put together. And to do so, of course, you're going to need a teensy hooked up either on a breadboard or on a motherboard, and I'll talk about that in a little bit. We need the button board we assembled, and then you're going to need some wires. In this case, I'm going to start off with breadboard, so I need male-female wires. Male being able to plug into the breadboard, and the female being able to hook to the header pins of the button board. So in this particular case, I think the first thing we need to do is look at a piece of code. Once again, there's a really wonderful example already set up for us. If we go to examples and we go to digital in this case and select button, we end up with a nice test code that we can use right out of the box. Don't have to do a thing to it. We kind of have to know which pins to use, so we're going to look at these variables here, these constants that have been declared. And you can see that the button itself is hooked up to pin 2, right? We'll talk about that briefly. And the LED, which is going to turn on and off with the button, is on pin 13. So if we look at this card here, we can see that pin 2 is actually going to be on this side over here of the USB connector, and it's going to be the 4th pin down. Okay, so ground 0, 1, 2. And of course, like I just said, ground is going to be located here on this side of the USB. And then once again, we can use this pin, this very first pin, on the right side of the USB for our voltage supply for the board. All right. Now, I've chosen colors of wires, which are pretty standard. Okay, we should be using something along this line for hooking these kind of circuits up. I'm going to use the yellow wire for the signal, hooking up to the button. I'm going to use the brown wire for ground, and I'm going to use the red wire to supply the power to the board. So like I said, this one here is going to be power. This very first one is going to be ground. And then if we count down, we'll find that it's going to be 0, 1, 2. So that means that's going to be pin 2. Then on the button board, I'll go ahead and plug in, for example, the ground first, which is way out here on this board, the power, which is going to be in the middle, and the signal, which is going to be closest to the edge. Okay, and now our button board is wired. Kind of pull that back so we can kind of see it. So let's go ahead now and load this code. Make sure my port is connected. Absolutely, my board is correct. Okay, so let me go ahead and get this loading, and I'll pause while it uploads. Okay, so the code is uploaded. Let's see what it does. And you can see the LED is currently on, and if I push the button, it goes off. In this case, let's take a quick look at the code just to kind of explain what actually happened. Like I said initially, we have to set these variables up here. We'll set them as constants to declare pin 2 as the pin we're going to connect the switch to. 13 is, I should have pointed that out earlier. If we look at pin 13, we can see that it is the one that the LED is already built onto. Okay, so we're going to use the onboard LED for this little experiment. We create yet another variable here, button state. We're going to set it equal to 0 or low initially. In the setup, we're going to do two things. We're going to set the pin mode of the LED, okay, the pin that the LED is connected to output, so we can send power out to it, so we can turn on a LED. And then we're going to set the pin mode of the button pin, pin 2, to input, so we can receive signals to and fro the pin. In our sort of infinite loop here, all we do is we gather information about that pin by doing a digital read, which is on pin 2, and that is going to be equal to the button state. So at some point there's power supplied to it. If there's power going to the pin through the resistor, it's going to be high. And if you push the button and it grounds it out, it's going to be connected to ground and it's going to be low. Then we do a little query here, a little if statement. And if it is truly equal to, equates to the high position or 1, okay, notice the double equal, it's going to then turn the LED on by sending it high or putting voltage out. And the default, of course, if it's not on, well, it's off. Okay, and the LED goes off. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to quickly hook this up to a PRT3 motherboard and show you how we would test it in that circumstance. I'll be right back. Okay, so here I've got a PRT3 motherboard set up and with a TNC 3.2 on it, and I want to go ahead and hook up our little button board to test it out. In this case, we're going to need a multi-filament wire, both sides female, so we can plug in both to the board and to the switch. And keep in mind we had to hook it up to pin 2, okay, which in this case is going to be, they go in this way. We got 0, 1, and 2. So we're going to plug it in with the signal wire closest to the chip, like so. So the colors line up really nicely, as you can see. We got signal, power, and ground. And I'm going to plug this into the button board, like so. All right. Now, a couple of things. One is you never ever want to attach a board directly to the chassis. It needs to have a spacer. If I just screwed this right onto it, all these bare wires would make contact with the metal chassis and I would short it out. So you cannot attach it directly to the chassis. You have to have a spacer or something to hold it off so that these wires in the bottom do not make contact. So I'm just going to hold this safely away. The other thing to note is that in this particular case with the motherboard, that this side of the motherboard, the power, this red bus here, is controlled by this switch. So currently this light is off, indicating there's no power going to that entire bus. So I'm going to have to turn it on. And now of course you can see that the light is on. The other thing is that I want to run this at 5 volts, okay? And I want to make sure that this jumper is currently set in the 5 volt position. So this is set at 5 volts, the power is on. So now I know I have power going up the red wire and my button board should work. So let's go ahead and pull up the code. I have to switch. I have a new TNC, so I have a new port. And let me load this up and I'll pause while it uploads. Okay, it's finished uploading, so let's take a look and see if it works. And you can see that the LED is currently on, and if I push the button it goes off. So everything works perfectly. Alright, so that should do it, and I will see you again soon.